The morning sun, a pale imitation of the fire brewing in my gut, sliced through the blinds of my small apartment. I adjusted my dress uniform, the starched fabric feeling stiff and unfamiliar against my skin. My fingers nervously traced the polished badge pinned above my heart, a symbol of everything I'd sworn to protect. But my reflection wasn't the only one staring back at me. In the corner of the room, Max sat perfectly still. My partner, my shadow, my furry four-legged hero. He was a magnificent Belgian Malinois, his sleek black coat gleaming even in the dim light. But today, something was off. His ears twitched with an unusual alertness, a subtle tension that seemed utterly out of place on what was supposed to be a day of celebration. "What's got you so wound up, partner?" I asked, turning to face him. His amber eyes met mine, and for a fleeting moment, I saw something flicker within them. A warning? A premonition? After 5 years together, I had learned to read his subtle signals like an open book, and right now the pages were filled with an unsettling unease. A slight tremor in his left ear spoke volumes to my trained eye. It was the same tremor I saw right before a bust, a warning that adrenaline was about to pump through his veins. The ceremony wasn't scheduled to start for another 2 hours, but I'm a firm believer in being early. To be early is to be on time is to be late, and to be late is unacceptable, my dad always said. It was a saying drilled into me since I was a young girl. Just 3 weeks ago, that same instinct, that same unsettling feeling radiating from Max, had led us to the biggest drug bust in Atlanta PD history. The memory was still fresh, a visceral cocktail of adrenaline and fear. We had been patrolling the warehouse district, a maze of crumbling brick and forgotten dreams, when Max's behavior changed suddenly. The same alert posture I was seeing now, the same almost imperceptible tension in his muscles. Following his lead, we discovered a sophisticated operation hidden beneath a seemingly abandoned building. What started as a routine patrol ended with 37 arrests and the seizure of nearly $50 million worth of narcotics. It was that bust that had earned us today's honor, the Medal of Valor. I shook off the memory and reached for Max's tactical vest, not the usual black one we wore on patrol, worn and tattered from years of wear and tear, but a specially decorated one for the ceremony, as if to say, "Look at the hero." With the Atlanta PD canine unit insignia embroidered in gold thread, it shone with pride. As I moved to put it on and Max backed away, it was a subtle movement, almost imperceptible, but it was enough to stop me in my tracks, something he had never done before. "Max?" The concern in my voice was evident. I reached for him again, my heart pounding in my chest, and this time he allowed me to approach, but his muscles were tense under my touch, coiled like a spring ready to unleash. 7 years on the force had taught me to trust my gut, even when it defied logic. And right now, my gut was screaming that something was terribly wrong. My phone buzzed, the harsh ringtone shattering the silence. A text from Captain Rodriguez. "Media's already setting up. Commissioner wants you here early for photos." Another buzz followed close behind. "Sarah, this is a big day for the department. Let's show him what the K9 unit can do." I clipped Max's leash to his collar, the metal clasp clicking like a gunshot in the confined space, and headed for the door. The weight of responsibility settled on my shoulders, heavy and suffocating. As we stepped into the elevator, Max's agitation grew more pronounced. He paced the small space, something he never did, his nails clicking against the metal floor in an irregular rhythm that matched my growing unease. The drive to headquarters was short, but Max's unusual behavior continued. He kept turning his head toward the back seat, scanning constantly, his nose twitching as if he was trying to catch a scent on the wind. Was he picking up on something I wasn't? Something dangerous? The Atlanta Police Department headquarters loomed ahead, its modern glass facade reflecting the morning sun. The plaza out front had been transformed for the ceremony. Rows of chairs, a podium draped in the city's colors, a sea of blue uniforms mingling with suits and press badges. The air crackled with anticipation. But beneath the surface, I felt a discordant note, a sense of unease that I couldn't shake. As I pulled into my designated parking spot, I noticed Max's ears prick forward, his body becoming even more rigid. His focus sharpened, honing in on something I couldn't see. "Easy, boy," I murmured, but the words felt hollow even in my own ears. Years of training and experience had taught me that Max's instincts were rarely mistaken. Something in the air had him on high alert, his senses dialed up to 11. We made our way toward the building, passing through security with familiar nods to the officers on duty. Officer Jenkins gave Max an odd look as we passed. "He okay? Never seen him this wired before." I managed a tight smile, trying to project an air of calm. I didn't feel. Just excited about the ceremony, I guess. As we approached the main hall where the ceremony was to take place, Max suddenly planted his feet, refusing to go any further. I felt the leash go taut against his resistance, the leather digging into my gloved hand. "Come on, partner," I encouraged, tugging gently on the leash, but Max wouldn't budge, his eyes fixed on something ahead, his posture screaming danger as clearly as if he'd spoken the word aloud. The bustling lobby seemed to fade away as I focused on my partner's behavior, trying to see what he was seeing. People bustled past, their voices a dull hum in the background, but all my attention was on Max. On the rigid set of his jaw, the intensity in his eyes, the low growl rumbling in his chest. Captain Rodriguez appeared at the entrance, his face breaking into a warm smile that quickly faltered as he took in the scene. "Everything okay, Collins? The press is asking for some pre-ceremony photos with our hero team." I opened my mouth to respond, to offer some kind of explanation, but before I could, Max let out a sharp bark. Not his usual alert bark, a warning to back away, but something more urgent, more desperate, a plea almost. Heads turned throughout the lobby, and I felt my cheeks flush with embarrassment. This wasn't like Max at all. He was usually so well-behaved, so disciplined. "Maybe he's just nervous about all the attention," Rodriguez suggested, trying to downplay the situation. But I barely heard him. My mind was racing, analyzing, trying to decipher the message Max was trying to convey. I was watching Max, seeing the way his eyes darted between the ceremony hall and the people filing in, searching for something. There was something in his behavior that reminded me of that day at the warehouse. The same intensity, the same urgency. Another bark, sharper this time, punctuated the air, and I made a decision. A decision that could cost me my career. "Sir, I think we might have a situation," I said, my voice low but firm. My hand instinctively moved to where my service weapon would normally be, but today I wore only the ceremonial dress uniform, stripped of the tools I relied on. Rodriguez's expression darkened, his smile vanishing like smoke in the wind. "Collins, there are reporters out there. The commissioner, the mayor. We can't delay this ceremony because your dog is having an off day. This isn't just about you and Max. It's about the entire department." I felt the weight of my badge against my chest, the symbol of authority and responsibility I'd sworn to uphold. But there was another weight, too. The weight of trust between me and Max, built over countless missions and saved lives. He had my back countless times. It was time to have his. Through the open doors, I could hear the murmur of the gathering crowd, the rustle of programs, the clinking of glasses. Everything was in place for a perfect ceremony, except for the dog who had earned it, now refusing to take another step forward. I took a deep breath, knowing my next decision could change everything. "I'm going to trust my partner," I said, my voice unwavering. The applause started before I could make my decision, washing over me like a wave. Through the open doors of the ceremonial hall, I could see the police commissioner taking his place at the podium, his voice booming through the speakers as he welcomed the assembled crowd. Captain Rodriguez shot me a final warning look, a mixture of frustration and disbelief, before hurrying to his assigned seat in the front row. He didn't believe me. No one did. Max's growl was so low that only I could hear it, a rumble that seemed to resonate through the leash and into my bones. I had heard that sound exactly twice before in our partnership, once during the warehouse raid and once when we had cornered an armed suspect in a school. Both times, it had preceded violence. "Ladies and gentlemen," the commissioner's voice carried through the speakers, smooth and confident, "today we honor two of Atlanta's finest." I dropped to one knee beside Max, my white gloves forgotten as I ran my hands through his fur, feeling for the subtle changes in muscle tension that would tell me what he was sensing. His eyes never left the hall's entrance, scanning the crowd, searching for a threat that only he could perceive. His body trembled with barely contained energy, ready to unleash at a moment's notice. Their recent operation resulted in the largest drug seizure in our department's history. The words faded into background noise as my training took over. I scanned the room with new eyes, not as a decorated officer at her own ceremony, but as a cop looking for trouble. The usual security was in place: uniformed officers at each entrance, metal detectors at the doors, bomb squad sweep completed hours ago, but Max's behavior suggested something had slipped through the cracks. Something or someone had managed to bypass the layers of protection. A flash of movement caught my attention. One of the catering staff was moving differently than the others, their steps too measured, too purposeful. He carried a large silver coffee urn toward the dignitary's table, weaving through the crowd with practiced ease. But his grip seemed unusually careful, as if the urn contained something far more delicate and far more dangerous than coffee. Mac's ears flattened against his skull, his growl intensifying. And now, please welcome Officer Sarah Collins and her canine partner, Max. The spotlight swung toward the entrance, momentarily blinding me. In that instant, I saw the caterer's hands move toward the urn's lid, his fingers fumbling with the release. I saw Max's muscles bunch beneath my fingers, coiling tighter, ready to spring. And I made my choice. Down. My command voice cut through the applause, sharp and decisive. Everyone down! Instead of moving forward to receive our commendation, the culmination of years of hard work and sacrifice, Max and I burst into action. We crossed the distance to the caterer in seconds, our movements fluid and synchronized. The man reached for something beneath his jacket, his eyes widening in panic. But Max was faster, his powerful body launching forward with deadly precision, his jaws clamped around the suspect's arm, preventing him from pulling out whatever weapon he was concealing. I tackled him from behind, my knee slamming into his back as I secured his hands behind him. The coffee urn crashed to the floor, spilling not liquid, but a mess of wires and circuitry. The hall erupted in chaos, people screaming, chairs scraping, security rushing forward with weapons drawn. But my focus remained on the suspect, my knee digging into his spine as I fought to maintain control. Clear the hall, Captain Rodriguez's voice cut through the chaos, his authority cutting through the rising tide of panic. Bomb squad, front and center. I heard the rapid evacuation behind me, felt the rush of bodies moving toward the exits, but I didn't take my eyes off the suspect. Max maintained his hold, his teeth firmly locked on the man's arm, a low growl emanating from his throat. He's not alone, the man spat out, blood trickling from where he'd bitten his lip during the takedown. You're too late. A crackle of static came from the man's earpiece, followed by words that made my blood run cold. Package 2's in position. Max's head snapped toward the back of the hall, his focus locking onto a second catering cart standing abandoned near the fire exit. A shiver ran down my spine. 2 bombs, meant to funnel panicking people toward what they thought was a safe exit, only to be met with another explosion. Rodriguez, I shouted, maintaining my hold on the first suspect. Secondary device by the fire exit. Get me a radio. The next few minutes were a blur of coordinated chaos. The bomb squad worked with practiced efficiency, securing both devices while tactical teams swept the building searching for any other potential threats. My hands never left the first suspect, and Max never relaxed his vigilant stance, his body a coiled spring ready to unleash at any moment. When it was over, when the all-clear finally sounded, I found myself sitting on the steps outside, the adrenaline slowly draining from my system. Max's head rested on my knee, his weight a comforting presence. Captain Rodriguez approached slowly, his face a mixture of relief and something else. Respect, maybe? Or recognition? The second device was bigger than the first, he said, sitting beside me. If it had gone off when people were running that way? He left the sentence unfinished, the unspoken horror hanging in the air between us. I nodded, my fingers absently stroking Max's ears. The adrenaline was wearing off, leaving my hands slightly shaky. Max knew, I said, my voice soft. He knew the moment we arrived. Rodriguez started to speak, then paused, searching for the right words. Collins, I should have listened. We all should have. If you hadn't trusted. Trust goes both ways, sir, I replied, looking down at my partner. Max's eyes were closed now, but his ears still twitched at every sound, constantly scanning the environment. That's what makes a good team, Rodriguez said, finally understanding. He stood, brushing off his dress uniform, the weight of the near disaster still heavy on his shoulders. Well, I guess we'll have to reschedule the ceremony, though after today, I think we might need to upgrade the commendation. I didn't respond immediately. My mind was still racing, replaying the events of the past hour, trying to make sense of it all. The suspect's words echoed in my mind. He's not alone. The cartel had reached farther than anyone had imagined, infiltrated the heart of the police department, and almost succeeded in their revenge. And something told me this wasn't over. This was just the beginning. Max lifted his head suddenly, his eyes focusing on something in the distance. A flicker of movement, a subtle change in the air. Something had caught his attention, and I knew, without a doubt, that it was something important. I felt myself tensing again, ready for whatever might come next. Whether it was a new threat or just lingering paranoia, I knew one thing for certain. I would trust Max's instincts over protocol every time. He was more than just a dog. He was my partner, my hero, my family. A soft breeze carried the scent of cordite from the bomb squad's controlled detonation, mixing with the afternoon air. The smell of destruction and the promise of more to come. I stood, straightening my now wrinkled dress uniform, the weight of my badge feeling heavier than ever. "Come on, partner," I said, clipping Max's leash back onto his collar. "We've got work to do." I sat in the emergency response truck, my hand resting on Max's back as the bomb squad finished their sweep of the building. My mind drifted back in time, replaying the events that had led us to this moment, to our first meeting 5 years ago at the Atlanta Police Department's canine training facility. I had been different then, younger, more naive, more rigid in my beliefs about protocol procedure. I thought I knew everything there was to know about being a cop. But that was before Max. Before he taught me that sometimes instinct trumped everything else. The memory was crystal clear, etched in my mind like a photograph. The humid Georgia morning, the nervous energy of 6 potential handlers waiting to be paired with their canine partners. I had spent weeks preparing, studying every manual, memorizing every procedure. I thought I knew exactly what to expect. I was wrong. "Collins," Sergeant Martinez had called out, his voice gruff but kind. "You're up first. Let's see if any of our friends here take a shine to you." I walked into the training yard, my heart pounding in my chest. 5 Belgian Malinois waited in their kennels, their eyes watching me, with varying degrees of interest. 4 of them immediately approached their gates, tails wagging, eager for interaction. They barked, they whined, they clawed at the metal bars, desperate for attention. It was the 5th dog, the one who stayed back, watching me with calculating amber eyes, that caught my attention. He didn't bark, he didn't whine, he didn't try to win me over with cheap tricks. He simply observed, his gaze intense and unwavering. "That's Max," Martinez said, following my gaze. "A bit of a lone wolf, that one. Brilliant, but he doesn't play well with others. Failed out of 2 handler programs already." My heart skipped a beat. A challenge, a diamond in the rough. I couldn't resist. I approached Max's kennel slowly, cautiously. He didn't move, didn't wag his tail, didn't show any of the eager behaviors the other dogs displayed. He simply watched me, head slightly tilted as if he was trying to solve a puzzle. "Hey there," I said softly, crouching down to his eye level. "Heard you're a tough one to impress." Max's ear twitched, the same subtle movement I had learned to read so well over the years. A sign of curiosity, interest, or simply a reaction to the sound of my voice. Then he did something that made Martinez gasp. He approached the gate and sat down, his eyes never leaving mine, a silent invitation, a gesture of acceptance. "Well, I'll be damned," Martinez muttered, scratching his head in disbelief. Got the first time he's shown interest in anyone. The next 3 months of training had tested us both, pushing us to our limits. Max was everything Martinez had said and more. Brilliant but headstrong, capable but unwilling to follow commands he didn't agree with. He challenged everything, questioned everything, forced me to think outside the box. I quickly learned that traditional training methods wouldn't work with him. He wasn't a robot, a machine to be programmed. He was an individual with his own thoughts, his own feelings, his own motivations. "You're trying to force him into a box," Martinez told me one particularly frustrating day, after Max had refused to perform a simple obedience exercise. "Max isn't a tool to be programmed. He's a partner to be understood." Those words changed everything. I stopped trying to make Max conform to the manual and started learning his language instead. I studied his subtle signals, the twitch of an ear, the tension in his shoulders, the different pitches of his whines. I learned to anticipate his moves, to understand his motivations, to trust his instincts. In return, Max began responding to me in ways that amazed even the veteran trainers. He became more focused, more cooperative, more willing to work with me. We developed a bond that went beyond simple obedience, a deep and unwavering trust that formed the foundation of our partnership. Our breakthrough moment came during a training exercise gone wrong. We were practicing building searches when a support beam in the abandoned warehouse we were using collapsed, sending debris crashing down around us. I was cut off from the exit, trapped in a pocket of space as dust and debris rained down around me, choking the air. Standard protocol called for K9S to retreat and wait for rescue teams, but Max ignored protocol. He knew I was in danger, and he wasn't about to leave me. He found a path through the debris that the human rescuers couldn't see, navigating the treacherous landscape with uncanny precision. He guided me to safety with a series of barks and movements that seemed almost supernatural in their precision, leading me through the maze of fallen beams and twisted metal. When we finally emerged from the wreckage, coughing and covered in dust, Martinez was waiting for us, his face a mixture of relief and awe. "That's not something you can train," he said afterward, watching me clean a small cut on Max's paw. "That's something that comes from trust, real partnership." The loud bang from the bomb squad's operation snapped me back to the present, jolting me out of my reverie. Max's head lifted from my lap, his eyes alert but calm. The trust we had built that day in the warehouse had only grown stronger over the years, tested and refined by countless missions and shared experiences. Captain Rodriguez approached, his phone in hand, his expression grim. "We got something from the bomb experts. The devices, they weren't amateur work, professional-grade military components. Whoever's behind this has serious resources." I nodded, my hand automatically finding the spot behind Max's ear that always helped him focus. The soft fur felt familiar and comforting beneath my fingers. "The cartel's not just angry," I said, my voice low. "They're desperate. That bust 3 weeks ago must have hurt them more than we thought, which means they'll try again," Rodriguez said grimly, the weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders. "We got lucky today. If Max hadn't—" "Luck had nothing to do with it," I interrupted, my voice firm. "Max knew. He always knows." Rodriguez studied us both for a moment, his gaze lingering on Max's calm and unwavering eyes. He was starting to understand, to see the depth of the bond between us, the power of the instinct that had saved countless lives. "You know," he said, a hint of a smile playing on his lips. "I remember when Martinez told me he was putting you two together. I thought he was crazy. A headstrong rookie and a problem dog seemed like a recipe for disaster." He paused, shaking his head in amazement. "Guess I was wrong." I smiled, my heart swelling with pride. "We all were." The sun began to set, casting long shadows across the plaza. The emergency vehicles packed up, the bomb squad departed, and the crowd of onlookers dispersed, leaving behind an eerie silence. The ceremony was over, not with applause and accolades, but with chaos and near disaster. But in the end, that didn't matter. We had done our job, we had protected the city, we had saved lives, and we had done it together. As I stood to leave, Max by my side, I knew that our partnership was stronger than ever. We faced the darkness together, united by a bond of trust, loyalty, and unwavering dedication. And whatever challenges lay ahead, I knew that we would face them as one. Because that's what partners do.